Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. A question that I get asked a lot is how can I get more power on my strokes? So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 ways that you can generate more power using your body's mechanics. Let's go. Welcome back. When it comes to generating power, there are so many variables that come into it. Things like what equipment you're using, whether you've got a heavy racket or a light racket, what type of strings you use, how you're built physically, what your strength is like and your explosive strength, and all of these sorts of things. Then it comes down to how well you prepare. Do you get yourself into a good position so that you can time the ball well and hit the ball clean? Now let's assume all of these things are good. How can you generate more power using your technique? And there are 3 main ways. Number 1 is making more use of the ground to create force. Number 2 is making better use of your kinetic chain. And number 3 is making a bigger swing. Now let's break those down. Now number 1, making more use of the ground to create force is arguably one of the most important. It's making more use of your legs. Power is initiated from the legs. It moves up to your hips before using your torso, your arms, and eventually your wrists. If you don't make good use of the ground, you're going to be relying on your arms and your smaller muscle groups to create power, which is going to be inefficient. So when hitting a forehand, a backhand, or a serve, it's vital to get some knee bend. Using your legs more and having a slight knee bend will allow you to get more force moving upwards through your stroke, whether you're hitting a forehand, a backhand, or a serve. It will allow you to get force moving from side to side or backwards and forwards, and it will also allow you to get good rotational force through your shot as well. If you want to make more use of the ground in your own game, try thinking about using your back leg slightly more within your strokes. For example, if you're hitting a forehand with a neutral stance, try to get your knees slightly bent so that you can put your weight through your back leg onto your front leg. By getting this weight transfer going from back to front is going to allow you to get much more power through your shots.
You can see Emma Raducanu here generating power on her forehand by using good body weight transfer. She's using her back leg to drive down into the ground, transferring that body weight onto her front foot. You'll notice that Diego, Naomi and Mikhail here on their serves really use the ground to drive up and into the court. Although both legs are actively involved in driving up to the ball, because they're also driving forwards, they're going to be making more use of their back leg. So very similar to what I mentioned about the forehand, try to drive your back leg into the ground to transfer your body weight forwards.
The second part is making more use of your kinetic chain. Now your kinetic chain is basically linking all of your body parts together, from your ankles to your knees to your hips to your shoulders to your elbow to your wrist. Now if you have a very smooth and fluid kinetic chain, it's going to help you massively within your strokes. A really good way to develop smoothness and fluidity is by doing shadow swings. An example of using your kinetic chain in the most smooth and efficient way is if you just stand there with your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart with your arms relaxed. Start by just rotating from side to side. You can already see the momentum of my turn is lifting my racket. Now if I add a slight knee bend into this, you can see that my racket is starting to create a loop, a bit like a forehand. Now if I make that knee bend deeper and slightly more powerful, my arm is doing no work, yet my racket is doing a forehand swing. You can see I've got a follow through, I've got a take back. Now I'm going to start to engage my upper body, and I'm going to bring my left arm into play now. Again, my hitting arm is so relaxed, my racket is just flying through the air. And finally, I'm going to make use of my wrist, and I'm going to grip the racket and focus on keeping my racket face pointing down the court. You can probably hear a bit of a whoosh sound here. I'm getting extreme racket head speed from minimal effort, just because I'm making more use of my kinetic chain. So give that little exercise a go. You can do something similar on the serve, just really loose, letting your racket flow like a pendulum. Then you can start to introduce a slight knee bend at the back. Boom. And that will increase the size of your backswing. Good. Then you can let the racket go up into this trophy position, rocking back, rocking back. Finally, you can engage your upper body by twisting your hips. And again, rotate your hips. And then if you engage your arm, your serve starts to look more like a serve. So there you go, that's how you can use the kinetic chain. The final tip for generating power is increasing the size of your swing. Now, the bigger your swing is, let's use a forehand for example, the bigger your swing is, the more distance there is between your racket and the ball, meaning that you have more space to accelerate and to create speed leading up to the shot. What it also does is it increases your lever. By putting the racket further away from your body, it's going to be moving much quicker than it would be if it was close to your body. So if you want to increase the power on your forehand, simply by making your backswing slightly bigger is going to allow you to do so. The same goes for the serve. If your elbow's very tucked in on your serve, you can see that you have very little distance between the racket and ball. If you can spread your arms out slightly further, you're going to see here that you're going to get much more space between your racket and ball, leading up to potentially more power. Now, with all of these things in mind, for most players, power isn't the best option. For most players, it's more about controlling the ball and putting it where you want it to go. This video is purely for players that are looking to get that little bit more power. And if that is you, try considering one of these three things. Using ground to create force, i.e. using your legs more, making sure that you're using your kinetic chain efficiently and all body parts are working harmoniously together. And finally, increasing the size of your backswing. Don't forget, by doing these things, it could affect your timing initially, especially if you're adjusting the size of your backswing. It's going to take slightly longer than it normally would. So only practice this in a situation where you have enough time to do so. It's not going to be sensible to try to increase the size of your backswing when you're returning a first serve. As I mentioned at the start, there is a lot more that goes into adding power to your strokes, but they were just 3 ways that you can use your body more efficiently. If I were you, I would focus mainly on trying to use your legs slightly more within your shots, transferring your body weight from your back leg onto your front leg. Obviously, if you've got your own coach, they're going to be able to give you some more personal tips. These are just very broad, so take care when adding them into your game. But I hope they helped. If they did, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel and hit that like button. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.